He stepped between them, looked at the woman who holds the second highest title in the British monarchy, and said 5 words that no palace protocol could soften. "I will take my daughter." What happened next sent shockwaves through the palace, and the consequences of that single, controlled refusal are still being felt inside the royal family today. The morning Camilla discovered her limits. It was a sunny afternoon at Windsor Castle, the home that has stood as a symbol of British royalty for centuries. But this wasn't a formal royal event with grand speeches and glamorous outfits. Instead, quietly, firmly, permanently shut. So when Queen Consort Camilla stepped into that corridor with a sealed folder under her arm and her hand extended toward Princess Charlotte, Prince William was already prepared for exactly this moment. He did not hesitate. He did not negotiate.
Know that as much as we have now the reign of King Charles and Queen Consort Camilla, the future is William and Kate.
And their children.
He had already read the room before Camilla entered it. Every document had been reviewed. Every formal instruction had been rewritten. Every door that could have been used to redirect his daughter's future had been remained composed, her posture firm, her presence undeniable. She was not reacting to the tension. She was holding it. What unfolded in those few seconds went beyond surprise. It revealed something deeper, something that could not be dismissed as a simple misunderstanding or a playful exchange. The conference. But the longer the moment stretched, the more difficult that became. Her reaction, once measured, now carried traces of discomfort. It was not dramatic. The contrast between them became impossible to ignore. On one side, expectation meeting resistance. On the other, control without explanation. And in that contrast, not openly emotional, but it was unmistakable. And that was what made it so striking, because across from her stood Charlotte, unchanged. No hesitation, no uncertainty, just a quiet, steady confidence that seemed to anchor the entire scene. Her expression precious. And Charlotte carried her journal, absorbing every detail, learning the weight of what she had been given by a woman who had decided, years before Charlotte was old enough to understand why, that she was the right person to carry it forward. Communicated nothing, and in communicating nothing, communicated everything. William did not issue a statement. He signed a charter. He walked with his children. He answered his son's questions about history with the patience of a man who understood what it meant to be entrusted with something precious. By the instinct to protect rather than profit. By the understanding that the most valuable inheritances are not the ones measured in acres or pounds, but in the weight of a promise kept across generations. Charlotte has that promise now. And based on everything Queen Elizabeth saw in her, Queen Elizabeth II built a legal fortress. But what she really built was something no clause can contain and no holding company can bind, not by blood alone, but by character. By the willingness to walk quietly into a vault and repair what is broken when no camera is watching. William wasn't just asking out of curiosity. He was determined to get to the bottom of it. His heart was heavy with concern for Charlotte, but there was also an undeniable anger. The royal family was often seen as a symbol of Sila's granddaughter, Eliza Lopez, about Charlotte's mother, Kate. "Your mummy's just pretending to be queen. Mine is the actual one." The words hit hard, and it was clear to William that this wasn't just a minor insult. It was an attack on his family. His daughter was being targeted, and there was no excuse for it. William's face hardened. He could feel his protectiveness as a father rise to the surface. He wasn't going to let strength and unity, but now his family was under attack. The staff, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, quickly explained what had happened. They spoke of the cruel remark made by Camilla. The reality became clear. Princess Charlotte did not move. There was no shift in her stance, no softening in her expression. If anything, her calm seemed to sharpen. She remained exactly where she had placed herself. There was a small adjustment in posture, a measured breath, and the faintest suggestion that she might step forward regardless. It was the kind of response that suggested she still believed the moment would correct itself, that this unexpected resistance would give way, that protocol would quietly restore order. But as she made that subtle move, prepared for. At first, the change in her expression was subtle. A brief pause, a slight tightening around the eyes, the kind of reaction that might go unnoticed in a different setting. But here, in the controlled environment of a royal entrance, even the smallest shift carried meaning. Her composure, once steady, began to falter in ways that were difficult to hide. The expectation of immediate access had been interrupted, and in its place came hesitation. She attempted to recover, difficult to navigate. Her initial confidence gave way to visible uncertainty. She stood there, caught between reacting and waiting, unsure whether to challenge the situation or allow it to pass, expecting the tension to break into laughter. Others remained still, sensing that something more significant was unfolding beneath the surface, because what they were witnessing wasn't simply a delay at a gate, it was a disruption of expectation. For Camilla's daughter, the moment became increasingly something unspoken about presence, about positioning, about who could decide when a line could be crossed. And as the silence deepened and the tension quietly spread, one thing became impossible to ignore. This was not just a moment. It was a statement still unfolding, and still, Charlotte remained exactly where she was. Unmoving, unapologetic, completely in control of the space she had claimed. What began as a routine entrance had transformed into something far more revealing. The gate, once just a physical boundary, now felt symbolic, representing filled with picnic blankets, soft drinks, and the occasional burst of laughter. There were no tiaras or formal uniforms, just simple joys. At the heart of the gathering were Prince William, Kate, and their children. Prince George, Princess Charlotte. It was a rare family gathering, meant to be relaxed and carefree. For the first time in ages, the royal family had the chance to spend time together without the pressure of public eyes or stiff ceremonies. The scene was set in the castle's beautiful gardens, where the sunlight filtered through the trees, casting soft shadows on the lush and Prince Louis. The young royals were full of energy, running and playing near the flower beds. George, as always, was full of confidence, leading the games with the quiet authority of green lawns. The air was filled with the sound of birds chirping and the distant laughter of children playing. It seemed like the perfect escape, a moment to be just a family. The gardens were exactly how deeply the erasure had wounded her. Was I ever meant to be told? William closed the open file in front of him with deliberate calm. You were meant to respect the boundary, he replied. She had expected resistance. She had not expected him to speak as though her involvement of the Queen Consort, the title held by the monarch's wife as his senior companion and partner in royal life. William did not soften. He said Charlotte was not a symbol to be positioned, trained, or claimed by anyone seeking to secure their own place in the monarchy's future. Camilla insisted she had only ever tried to protect the princess. William leaned forward. Protection begins by asking her parents. The silence that followed was, by every account, absolute. Then Camilla revealed something that changed the entire shape of the argument. She had crossed from ambition into threat. Camilla argued that decades of royal service had earned her the right to help prepare the next generation. She said that excluding her so completely undermined the authority. This go. He needed to act, and act fast. He immediately called for a meeting with his senior staff. William knew this wasn't just about a simple scolding or a reprimand. This was bigger. This wasn't an easy decision for William. He didn't take it lightly. It was emotional for him as a father. He wasn't just thinking about the rules of royalty. He was thinking about his daughter's well-being and making sure that she was protected. For William, this was about defending Camilla's granddaughter Eliza would no longer have access to royal events or privileges, no more appearances at royal ceremonies, No more visits to royal estates. Her honorary royal title would be stripped away. It was a shocking move, one that most people didn't expect, but it was one that William knew had to happen. It was about respect and dignity, values that the royal family should uphold. No one was above those values, no matter who their grandmother was. In that meeting, William made his decision. Princess Charlotte moved forward. There was no rush in her step, no visible uncertainty. She placed herself directly at the entrance, her small frame now forming a clear and distance, least of all from someone so young. The hesitation that followed was subtle, but impossible to ignore. She adjusted her footing, as if waiting for the situation to correct itself, as if this interruption would quickly dissolve into explanation or apology. But it didn't. Charlotte didn't move. There was no sign of hesitation, unmistakable barrier. It was not accidental positioning, nor was it the playful wandering of a child. Her stance was firm, her posture deliberate, and her gaze steady in a way that immediately altered the atmosphere around her. Conversations faltered, movements slowed, attention turned. For a brief moment, the scene seemed almost suspended in time. Camilla's daughter paused, clearly not expecting resistance. Anyone know that this day would soon be remembered for something far less serene. The calm atmosphere was about to shatter, setting the stage for a royal conflict no one saw coming. The Covenant Trust, a legal fortress, was no exception. Lola and Eliza, though they didn't have the royal blood, were learning the ways of the family, showing up for these quieter occasions and gaining their share of attention. Everything seemed perfect. A peaceful day in the royal gardens, free of the usual palace politics. But little did interest built in secret. Now, we need to talk about the legal architecture that made this transfer possible, because it is as extraordinary as the estate itself. The Cedar Estate does not fall under the Crown Estate. It does not fall under the Duchy of Cornwall. Instead, it exists under a private legal had started making appearances at more royal events in recent years. The family was slowly becoming more integrated into royal life, attending high-profile events like the coronation and this informal gathering. No one, not even a member of Camilla's family, was going to mistreat his daughter and get away with it. As Kate comforted Charlotte, a sense of determination washed over William. This was not just a minor incident, it was an attack, and he wouldn't let it slide. The stage was set for a royal confrontation that no one had anticipated. Least of all, Camilla. The moment the gates didn't open. The palace entrance had always been a place of quiet order, where movements were her expression composed, her expectation clear. Entry was assumed. But just before that expectation could become reality, something shifted. Without warning, smooth, expected, and rarely questioned. On that afternoon, everything followed that same familiar rhythm, until it didn't. As the gates stood partially open, anticipation lingered in the air. Queen Camilla's daughter approached with the quiet confidence of someone who had never needed permission to pass. Her steps were steady. Both conditions have now been met. The official statement confirmed it plainly. Under the terms of the sealed covenant trust executed by Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II in 2020, the property known as the Cedar Estate, designed to trigger only after two specific conditions were met: the conclusion of the Queen's state funeral and the moment Prince William was publicly recognized as heir to institutional responsibility, shall pass in full and exclusive guardianship to His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, effective immediately. Simple words. Irreversible consequences. But here is where the story shifts from inheritance to confrontation, because not everyone received this news with grace. A mechanism called a covenant trust, created in 2020, filed under Charter Seal 0142, and witnessed by the Queen's personal solicitor, a constitutional advisor, and a notary from the Royal Archives. The trust came equipped with a delayed activation clause. He watched her leave, then summoned the trust governor and ordered a complete review of every palace instruction carrying either Camilla's authority or Charles's informal approval. Because behind Camilla's request, there was now something far more complicated, an older promise, spoken in private, that had been interpreted as permanent permission. And only the king could explain how far that promise was ever meant to reach. William's response was immediate. He demanded to know whether the king had formally approved the trust proposal itself. Camilla refused to answer directly. William understood immediately what that silence meant. Disclosed that Charles, the king himself, had once privately encouraged her to provide continuity for George and Charlotte if the monarchy entered a period of instability. She believed that assurance from the monarch himself gave her a foundation for the advisory role she had been pursuing, based on the precision and care with which she designed the covenant that carries Charlotte's name. She always knew she would. If this story moved you, share it with someone who understands the difference between legacy and ambition. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Because the chapter written by Queen Elizabeth may be closed, but the story of what Charlotte does with the trust she's been given is only just beginning, heavier with each passing second. What could have been dismissed as a passing moment began to feel something else entirely, something intentional. The message, though unspoken, was clear. This was not about confusion or miscommunication. It was not a mistake. The way shocking. It didn't carry the unpredictability of childish behavior. It carried the weight of a decision. Around them, the reaction was immediate, though restrained. Members of the household exchanged quick, uncertain glances. Some seemed amused at first, expectation in her expression, no glance backward for approval, no indication that she was about to step aside. Instead, she held her position with a calm confidence that felt far beyond her years. The silence between them stretched, growing heavy. Charlotte stood there, composed, unshaken, suggested awareness, control, even a quiet kind of authority. And that was what made the moment so striking. They sensed something more revealing was taking place. Camilla's daughter hesitated once more, caught between response and restraint. There was a visible effort to maintain control, to restore the composure that had defined her entry, as if she understood the weight of the moment and chose to hold it there. The silence between them grew heavier. It was no longer just a pause. It became a space filled with uncertainty, with unspoken questions, with the quiet tension of two individuals locked in a moment neither could easily resolve. Around them, her presence steady and unchallenged. A faint trace of amusement touched her face, not exaggerated, not playful in the usual sense, but controlled. It was the kind of expression that suggested awareness. The atmosphere shifted again. Conversations that had already slowed now stopped completely. Onlookers watched closely, not because they expected confrontation, but because the children of the royal family were playing, enjoying the rare break from their usual royal duties. But suddenly, Princess Charlotte, who was known for her calm and confident nature, became the target of a cruel remark. It was Camilla's granddaughter bullying Princess Charlotte. What started as a fun afternoon in the royal gardens quickly spiraled into a moment that would shake the monarchy. But Eliza didn't stop there. In a moment that seemed to come out of nowhere, she said, "Your mummy is just pretending to be queen. Mine is the actual one." The words hit hard. It's Camilla's granddaughter, Eliza Lopez, who made the cutting comment. At first, it seemed like an innocent jab about Charlotte's curtsy, a playful comment about how she moved or how she was dressed. Subtle imbalance emerged, not one defined by words or titles, but by presence, by the way the moment shifted, by who adjusted and who did not. It was a quiet exposure of something rarely seen so clearly within the carefully managed world of the royal family. The gate remained closed, the silence remained unbroken, and the reaction, still unfolding, continued to say far more than anyone had expected. In a world defined by protocol, one silent moment revealed more than titles. Step back from the legal details and the estate names and the holding companies for a moment and ask yourself the real question. Why did Queen Elizabeth feel this level of protection was necessary? She was a woman who had spent her entire reign choosing restraint over confrontation ever could. The gate stayed closed, the stillness lingered, and every reaction spoke volumes. But did this quiet shift expose a hidden truth the monarchy can no longer contain? Keep watching. What this story actually means. Commercial. They were personal. They were about brand building, financial positioning, and the transformation of 7 centuries of royal heritage into a hospitality portfolio. And she responded to that recognition the only way she knew how. Not with confrontation, not with public statements, but with the quiet, irrevocable language of sealed trusts, notarized covenants, and a grandmother's handwritten certainty. She chose William ultimately not flattering for those who forced her hand. Within her own family, within the institution she had devoted her entire life to, she had identified actors whose priorities were not legacy, not service, not the welfare of the monarchy's future. They were diplomacy over declaration. She did not build legal fortresses around ordinary matters. She did not anticipate obstruction in writing unless she had genuine, specific, documented reasons to believe that obstruction was coming. The answer to why she built what she built is no crowds, just a mom watching her kids play. Her eyes occasionally shifted to Prince William, who was standing nearby, talking with his father, King Charles. He glanced over to make sure everything was fine, then returned to his conversation, allowing his children to enjoy their freedom. Older sibling, Louis, the youngest, was the most mischievous, darting around and causing a little trouble here and there, his bright smile showing his excitement. But it was Charlotte, the second oldest, who seemed to be the center of attention. Known for her charm and quick wit, she radiated a calm confidence as she interacted with her brothers and the other children. Kate, ever the doting mother, moved around the group, making sure her children were safe and happy. She was relaxed and at ease without the usual formalities of royal events. No reporter. Alongside the Cambridge family was Camilla, the Queen Consort, who had brought her granddaughters, Lola Parker Bowles and Eliza Lopez. Though not officially royal, Camilla's grandchildren. He walked straight to the staff, his face serious. He asked, "What happened here?" His tone was firm, demanding an answer. Grew. Was this hesitation accidental, or a deliberate message still unfolding before everyone watching? Stay with us. The role of Prince William. As soon as William saw Charlotte crying in Kate's arms, everything